The Draxian Hegemony moved through the galaxy with the serene, unstoppable grace of a natural law. Their conquests were not merely military campaigns, they were exercises in administrative inevitability. For centuries, they had perfected a doctrine of structured oblivion. Treaties were exquisite documents celebrated with grand ceremony, designed to be observed only until the moment they became inconvenient. Promises of temporary stewardship and galactic development oversight were not lies in their view, but temporal truths, valid for the phase of conflict, to be superseded by the new truths of victory. They built nothing to last beyond utility and documented nothing that could become a future liability. Their historians were not record keepers, but narrative engineers, weaving the chaotic threads of war into smooth, righteous tapestries after the fact. To the Draxian mind, this was the highest form of efficiency. Reality was a malleable resource. When they turned their gaze to Earth, they saw a species shackled by its own sentimental attachments to law, to history, to the quaint notion of objective truth. Their analysts' reports dripped with cold pity. Human militaries were capable, but their command structures were clogged with ethical reviews and legal oversight. Their greatest weakness, the Draxians concluded, was their compulsion to bear witness, to judge their own actions. It was a luxury, the hegemony knew, that victors could afford to indulge after the fight was won. The invasion began not with a thunderous declaration, but with a series of meticulously calibrated system anomalies and navigational errors that disabled key orbital platforms. The first human cities to see the ominous silhouettes of Draxian dropships against their dawn skies also heard, on every screen and frequency, the impeccably modulated voice of the Imperial Herald, assuring them of the temporary, regrettable, and wholly necessary nature of the pacification to come. America's response, or more accurately, its primary response, was met with initial confusion by Draxian tacticians. They had anticipated a frantic, revealing counterattack, a desperate unleashing of secret weapons that would reveal the full scope of human capability. Instead, they detected a massive, silent redirection of computational and sensor resources. From the instant of the first hostile scan, a global, distributed system codenamed Chronicle activated. Its mandate was not to fire, but to record. Its sensors were every surviving satellite, every drone, every submarine's hydrophone, every civilian smartphone with a camera pointed at the sky. Chronicle did not just log impacts, it cataloged the unique energy signatures of Draxian weaponry, building a library of their technological provenance. It didn't just track ship movements, it modeled their command and control patterns, identifying the subtle differences between fleet-wide directives and the improvisations of individual commanders. It intercepted public broadcasts and, through a web of signal intelligence algorithms, traced the lines of internal Draxian communication. Every timestamp was not just a number, it was a node in a vast, four-dimensional map of the conflict, linking a general's coded order from a flagship light minutes away to the plasma scar on a specific city block on Earth. This was archival not as a passive act, but as a form of aggressive, focused attention. They were dissecting the Draxian war machine in real time, not to find a weak spot for a counterstrike, but to understand its every component, intention, and violation. While soldiers fought heroically and died tragically on the front lines, the silent war of information was fought in data bunkers, where analysts fed the ravenous chronicle system, building a cage of facts so dense and verifiable it would be indestructible. As the war settled into a grueling stalemate, Draxian field commanders, pressured by a high command expecting swift, clean victory, began to operate with increasing brutality. The temporary occupation protocols were shelved. Rules of engagement were simplified into directives of maximum efficiency. A hospital in Jakarta, its coordinates repeatedly broadcast as a protected zone, was vaporized by an orbital strike labeled a target of strategic necessity. An agricultural transport in the Midwest was destroyed, its wreckage later cited in a Draxian bulletin as evidence of human weapons smuggling. The Imperial Media Corps worked tirelessly, producing slick, forensic-seeming reconstructions that twisted events, used out-of-context human communications, and presented fabricated sensor logs to support their narrative of a chaotic conflict, worsened by human insurgent tactics. They were masters of plausible deniability. America, through Chronicle, watched this two-tiered reality unfold. They did not jam the falsified broadcasts. They did not hack the Draxian networks to stop the atrocities. Instead, they recorded with even greater intensity. They gathered the original battlefield data, the clean sensor ping of the hospital, the civilian manifest of the transport, the unedited ground-level footage. Then they captured the Draxian cover-up, the edited logs, the falsified manifests, the official bulletins. Chronicle's AI began drawing lines of culpability, not just for the act, but for the lie that followed. It connected the sanitized report filed by a mid-level propaganda officer to the grim, unvarnished data from the field, and then linked both back to the encrypted command authorization from a specific Draxian flagship. The hegemony, believing it was fighting a war for territorial control, was unknowingly constructing, line by line, its own comprehensive legal and moral indictment. Every atrocity was now a double crime, the act itself and the conspiracy to conceal it, each with a digital paper trail leading to a named individual in the Draxian hierarchy. After a year of catastrophic losses on both sides, the Draxian hegemony leveraged its superior industrial capacity to force a climactic battle that ended in a tense, shattered ceasefire. The negotiation was to be held on the neutral, crystalline plains of Lyra Prime. The galaxy watched, assuming this was the familiar epilogue, the victor dictating terms to the vanquished. The Draxian delegation arrived in splendor. Their imperial herald presented the terms: total Earth demilitarization, a century of resource tithes, the dissolution of planetary governments into hegemony administrative sectors. The head of the human delegation, an elderly American diplomat with eyes that held no anger, only profound exhaustion, was granted the right of final reply before the procedural signing. He stood slowly. "The hegemony," he said, his voice calm, "has spoken of realities. We wish to ensure all parties share the same one before proceeding." He initiated a data transfer protocol. A single file, tagged EARTH-CHRONICLE-VERITAS, was transmitted to the central galactic nexus. What unfolded was not a speech, but an immersive, incontrovertible tribunal. Star maps zoomed in to pinpoint violations of galactic conventions on celestial body militarization. Timelines laid out the sequence of broken non-aggression pacts. Then came the core of the file, a dossier for every major incident. On the left, the official Draxian report, sleek and confident. On the right, the Chronicle data. Raw sensor logs, unedited visual feeds, decrypted command codes, and financial transfers for cover-up operations. Each dossier ended with a portrait and service file of the Draxian commander and bureaucrat responsible. The file was sealed with unbreakable quantum encryption signatures, proving its authenticity and making it immune to deletion or alteration. The silence in the chamber was absolute, Then chaos erupted, not on Lyra Prime, but across the galaxy. Allied empires publicly severed ties, citing non-association clauses. Neutral systems instantly froze all Draxian financial assets. Insurance syndicates voided policies for the entire hegemony. The mercenary legions, whose contracts had morality clauses, dissolved their bonds en masse. The Draxian war machine, in moments, became a pariah fleet, rich in firepower but bankrupt in legitimacy.
The Draxian Empire did not fall in battle. It underwent a total systemic collapse. Its currency became worthless data. Its ships, unable to dock for resupply or repair, became orbiting tombs. Its political alliances evaporated. In his final, isolated throne room, the now former emperor managed to secure a brief, scrambled communication channel. His image was gaunt, his regalia seeming like a hollow costume. He stared at the image of the American president. "You fought like demons on the ground," he rasped, voice stripped of its former grandeur, brimming with bitter confusion. "You sacrificed so much. Why not use that fury in space? Why not launch everything at our heart when you had the chance? It would have been cleaner." The president regarded him for a long moment. "We weren't fighting your army, Emperor," she said, her tone devoid of gloating, filled only with finality. "We were preparing your consequences. An army can be rebuilt, a treasury refilled, but trust, once proven to be the foundation of a lie, cannot be reclaimed. You didn't lose to our weapons. You lost to the truth of your own actions." The Draxian hegemony was dismantled not by missiles, but by reparations committees and galactic tribunals using the Chronicle files as evidence. From that day forward, a new, stark warning was etched into the opening chapter of every galactic military and diplomatic textbook. If humans begin documenting, assume the war is already over. You are no longer combatants. You are defendants, and they are compiling the discovery. The ultimate power humanity had demonstrated was not the power to destroy, but the power to define the immutable record.